Ciao ragazzi, my name is Anthony. This is Bruno. Welcome back to Inter Worldwide. It's a pleasure to be back. But this absolutely ridiculous international break has not only hurt us, it's hurt pretty much most of the big clubs around the world. And we don't need to talk twice about the ridiculous amount of rotational football going on at the moment. But let's give a nice little shout out to people in our chat before we begin. Bruno, hello to Mattia. Changing ownership is the only good thing that could come out of this horrible season. Emiliano is here as well, and so is our brother Jono. Bruno, how you doing today?
Mate, I've been wanting to do this video for some time, but I just feel now is the time. And the Curva has jumped on board with the Zhang VATTENE, Zhang get out. And it's something that the club is really starting to hurt. And, Mattia mentioned it earlier. And it's one of those things where you need to start moving forward. And unfortunately, Zhang is holding us back. You really need to start pushing on. And in a business sense, because, football's become a business these days. It's not one of those things where it used to be just a sport. It's a business. And in a business sense, it's not making sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not making dollars at all. So, it's one of those things where we need to proceed. Thank you, Zhang. But, our good friend Ian Kerr from the Interclub Belfast, he's on day 407 of his Zhang out, Suning out protest.
Speaking of Ian in the Inter Club Belfast, do you like my new water? Let's call it a water bottle for on air, man. Shout out Ian and Debbie at the Inter Club Belfast for sending these over to myself and Bruno. Yours is coming, man. So I'm pumped. They're mad.
Oh yeah, but he's been at the forefront of the Suning out since the whole Conte and Lukaku debacle of the start of last season, and you could really see the early signs there. But it hasn't been all doom and gloom under Zhang. So if we go back to 2016 when he purchased Inter, initially it was for 280 million, with the total deal coming in at 720 million euros, I believe. Yeah, 750 million euros. We finally had an owner who loved the sport and didn't see the club as a business. You know, Eric Thoid, he commenced our banter era, but Zhang came in. You know, he's now currently 31, and at the time he was 26 when he became owner. And his father became owner, and he got admitted into the board as chairman of Inter. We've seen some great signs under him, and I think it was I'm just pulling up my statistics. It was the season of 2019 where Inter's value grew by over 41%. And it was the highest growth of any club in Europe that year, which is something massive when you're up against the likes of not just domestically of Juventus signing Ronaldo, but you're also up against the likes of Real Madrid, Barcelona, Chelsea, Man City, etc. So it was a very nice thing to do there, and to see those numbers drive up. And they were the highest growth. They ranked in the top 10 for Club Stadia, which is venue performance, and number one in Italy. And that's basically because he brought players, he brought victories. And when you bring players and when you bring victories, you bring fans to stadiums, you put bums on seats, and Inter has been phenomenal. But we've seen that decline, Anth.
100%. From what Bruno's saying, you can see it up on the screen now. These are your signings post Zhang era takeover from Torhier, and you can see the quality compared to what we were working with at the time. And you'll see it in the next slide. It just continues to grow up, and the spending will go up as well. Pre-COVID, as Bruno said, it was not being treated like a business. There was money. There was liquidity. There was no ban on external projects being approved by Chinese governments and entities there. So it was a free-for-all. Zhang was free here to, spend his monopoly and spend his little kitty. And having a look at the signings that came in around 18, 19, you can just see that's a big gamble, that 38 million package on Nainggolan. But then with Martinez and Vershalico as well, Keita Balde, Matteo Politano, you can see the quality slightly going up. Remember, Stefan de Vrij was there as well. As soon as we move ahead to our biggest spending season, which was 1920, this is when Conte's coming in, and your aspirations need to match that of which the manager that you've brought in to take over, Spalletti. And that's when there's just money coming out of left, right, and center. We've redeemed the loan for Politano for 21 million. Valentino Lazzaro, all 22.4 wasted million euros of him. We spent on Eriksen midway through the season there as well. Lukaku was 3/4 of 100 million euros at the time. And then as you can go down the list, there's a fair few there as well. So you're right in this nitty gritty part now where COVID hasn't come around yet and Inter's ready to pounce on a weaker Juve and a slightly weaker Serie A, considering Napoli and Roma are tapering down a little bit. And it was time to strike. And strike is exactly what Suning and Steven Zhang did. And that's where I really like this comment. But before that, I just want to say big shout out to Massimo Fazzino, who's our newest member on Inter Worldwide as well. I thank you from the bottom of my heart. Please feel free to PM me on Twitter or the Inter Worldwide on Twitter or the Facebook as well, so I can get to know you a little bit better, man. I really appreciate it. If Inzaghi cannot trust Aslani, then he's not meant as a coach for Inter. Well said. Matteo says it well, Bruno. Zhang brought us out of the banter era, as we can see up on the screen there with your Barellas, your Hakimis as well, your Vidals, Alexis Sanchez's. But now, if he stays, he's going to bring us back into the banter era as well. I'm also grateful, like Huyan said, for what Suning has done. But now it's definitely time to separate. What are you saying, man?
Look, I just think it is. I think he's pushing past his due date. He's expired. You don't drink off milk, and as an owner, you don't drink from the chalice of poison. And I feel that's what's happening with news coming out of Italy that Inter and Skriniar are moving further and further apart in contract negotiations. You've really got to say this guy was the future of the club. We've said it about a couple of players, but Skriniar has been solid, the future. I've wanted him as captain for the last 2 seasons. PSG said no, but I just feel the fact that we were actually negotiating with PSG just shows the strife that Inter's in. And, you need new owners to throw these money at these players. Like, we'll give you Lukaku was our best paid player, and he left to Chelsea for almost double what he was getting at Inter. And he didn't even start. He sat on the bench for a season. How can we compete? How can a club compete? How can Italy as a whole compete? Right? You had Nottingham Forest spend and purchase 22 players, 2 full starting 11s, because they're a newly promoted team in the Premier League. How can any Serie A team compete with that? And I see the comments. We need to appreciate and we need to thank Zhang for what he's done. But I think it was Mattia who mentioned earlier, we left the banter era, but we can go straight back into it, right? And Mattia here, imagine losing Skriniar after Bremer and Kostic and Dybala. They were free transfers. How you cannot secure a free transfer? It just shows where the ownership's at. And credit to Zhang, he's trying his best and he has a deep love for the club. He's one of the few owners you see at many home fixtures. But if you've got that much of a love for the club, I still remember the videos of him on top of Inter HQ with the trophy, dancing, watching the crowds below, with Conte, with Lukaku, with all of that. He's got a love for the club, but let's see how deep his love is, because essentially he needs to sell. If he loves the club that much, he needs to go.
That's it, man. These are the good times. These are the good times up on the screen, but you could even tell as they were celebrating this Scudetto, it was hollow celebrations.
Yeah, and he knew the world the trouble in that loan from Oak Tree where he offered Inter as security. That shit's that really needs to be paid. And, with Piff coming into the equation and the multiple rumors surrounding that, I'd welcome it with open arms just to get the club back to where it should be. There are three or four potential clubs in Italy who deserve to be on par with the Manchesters, the Barcelonas, but they're drowning. And they're drowning real fast. And Inter is one of those clubs, one of those elite clubs throughout Italy. And, a club that's never been relegated to the second division, a club which is quite prestigious, a club which is one Scudetto away from the second star. And I think Zhang's nowhere to get us there. There's too much finance, too much issues with money. So, yeah.
Well, as you can see, the issues with money really start to show in comparison to 1920 and 1819 in the next graphic here, because it was dry post-Conte. This is under Simone Inzaghi. Now, you're scrapping at your 1.5 mil for Eden Dzeko. Here, you're redeeming Darmian. Denzel Dumfries is a very good transfer for that price right there. But once again, you're looking to get your middlemen. You're not going for your killers or your Hakimis, and you're relying on your free transfers and your loans as well. And it was no different this season as well, where our biggest spend was redeeming Joaquin Correa across 2 seasons, which just has not gone well at all for the management side of things at Inter. It's all about staying above water now and all about not drowning. So thank you to Diggs as well for joining us from Twitch. We really appreciate it there. Eduardo Hernandez says Zhang is like Moratti, loves the club but can ruin us. He must let go now or he's going to lose a lot of money. 100%. following this era, though, he's been able to save face, man, with these 2 cup final wins over your biggest rival. That's like, imagine the situation we could have been in, bro, if we didn't bring home these trophies right here. It would be dangerous, absolutely dangerous. And right now, that's the only thing that's saving him. So, Bruno and everybody in the chat, let's have this chat for a couple of minutes before we move on. If he was to walk away before the end of the year, let's say before January, and Inter is 2nd, 3rd, or 4th on the ladder, we haven't renewed Skriniar yet, but there's talk of optimism, and Zhang walks away, and we've got new ownership. Has he had a successful time at Inter, yes or no? Yes? He's collected every trophy, right? He got us back to the Champions League, which was the first goal.
Yeah, back to the Champions League, a Europa League final. He won the title. He won the Supercoppa. He won the Coppa Italia. But not just that, he reinstated faith in the fans. Because after the Tripletta season, it was doom and gloom. It was backwards. The likes of Scoletto being your star signing. It was doom and gloom. And he restored faith in the fans. He brought a love to the club. And you got to admit, it was extremely successful. But the saying goes, you either die the hero or you live long enough to see yourself turn into the villain. And he's borderlining that he's going to turn into the villain. And essentially, I say if he goes by December, his name should be instated in the hearts of Inter fans throughout the world. But if he holds on, he's just going to generate more and more hate. And we saw the Curva. The Curva has always stood by ownership. But even now, they've had enough. They've gone and they're out protesting. And when you protest and the Curva gets involved, shit happens. You get results. Because these are the most loyal, but also the most scary people when it comes to a club's supporter factions. And I don't know. Bring in Arab money, bring in Russian money. Well, not Russian at the moment, but bring in, you saw Abramovich. He could have sat on Chelsea for so long, but the love he had for the club, he sold.
What do you think of this headline coming out this morning that Zhang is looking to inject 100 mil of liquidity in?
There's rumors coming out of China saying that they'll be able to expand based on figures because their GDP is dropping and they need to invest and bring money back into the equation. But at the same time, is it a little too late? 100 million is going to do nothing. Yeah. 100 million is going to do nothing.
It doesn't because do anything.
Still debt. You're still paying players. You're still paying, we've got Inzaghi. If you're going to get rid of him, it's going to cost you 15, 20 million. So 100 million is going to do nothing. If you're going to redeem Lukaku, it's going to cost you 70 million again.
Yeah, I don't think that's happening.
There goes your 100 million. So what's 100 million going to do?
Yeah.
When you're trying to keep these superstars like Barella, like Skriniar, you got to offer them 8, 9, 10 million a season. When
we can't do that.
Of PSG, Real Madrid circling like sharks to blood. Like I'm just thinking that it's the time has come. And what do you think he's been successful in?
Oh, definitely. In the time that he's here to collect all the trophies, I mean, that's all you need to look at on paper. And it doesn't matter what argument you make after that. It's just that, you got to get off the ship now before it's completely sunk, like everybody is saying in the chat and what you're saying here as well. As long as he can leave with the head above water and turning the club over to sustainable owners that can hold on to the assets that he would otherwise need to sell to keep it above water, then that's the end game here now. Because really, once the Skriniar domino falls and he doesn't renew, that's it for every other player. No other player will be confident in the way that this club is running at all. Well, I think we're only one big player leaving away from the entire thing completely collapsing, man. So let's go to the comments as well, and then we'll pretty much finish up what's been a very good 20 minutes, Bruno, man. I've also saw this morning come out that there's some news about American owners as well. Did you see that?
Yeah, look, I'm not taking any of this ownership talk seriously until I start seeing something, because look, let's be honest, Zhang's been linked with selling the club for some time now. And he was stuck on 100 million. 1 billion. 1.2 billion of the rumors coming from PIF. The rumors are coming, but it's like one of those Lavezzi rumors or the Modric rumors. They're going to always be there, but they're never happening. So when rumor turns to fact, I'll really jump on it straight away. But I just think, and you got to admit, the guy's had some bad luck, right? He hasn't done much wrong. But once COVID hit and the sanctions were placed on his country, his hands were tied. And you got to admit, he's done well considering. But from the perspective of a fan, this isn't what you want to see. You don't want to see someone we won the Scudetto with 4 matches remaining to going winless across 6 or 7 games in what was a critical part of our defense last season. And the struggles now, we've beaten nobody. All of our results have come against nobodies, essentially bottom tier tables, qualifiers in Champions League. But it'll be interesting.
Yeah, well said here from John as well. Just goes to show how much BS the PIF rumors were 6 months ago that the club has been sold and they're announcing next week. Of course, man, it was just all smoke. Before we head off, just if anybody would like to register as well for our Serie, our fantasy competition, which is still going strong. We're going to do a more in-depth look at the teams on Friday when we do our preview for Roma, but the code is up on the screen. We're at 145 members now. In the match preview on Roma, we'll cover the fallout from international duty, the injury to Brozovic, the update on the Skriniar contract as well, and who is most likely going to play in that midfield, even though we all sort of know the answer to
return.
I actually don't think he is, bro. I don't think they're going to risk him at all. I don't think they will at all. I reckon we're going to play with Dzeko and Correa up front again because Argentina still aren't back from international duty, which is a little scary. In fact, I think they just finished playing now.
Yeah, 35 unbeaten.
Yeah.
It's going to be very interesting, but yeah, I'm eager for this Inter-Roma fixture. Not so much to watch the game, but the fact that club football's back again. I feel like we only just started the season and we're already on international break, and we've got, I think, 5 domestic fixtures before we're off again for 2 months.
Nice one.
So I think Zhang needs to put a smile on for the next 5 fixtures and then sell in the off season. Hopefully, you never know. There may be an announcement at the World Cup.
The World Cup would be the perfect distraction from all of this to get it done. All right. Thank you, Bruno. From all of us here at Inter Worldwide, Forza Inter Worldwide.